Good morning and happy Tuesday. We are continuing our lesson, Conquering Bad Tendencies, Envy, and Covetousness. And now, what is the result when all of this takes root in the heart? Job describes it so well. He talks about the end is death, and that the neighbors curse these kind of families that are so toxic with greed and selfishness. They are not contributors or serving in society. And there's dysfunction, there's addiction. He doesn't say these words, but if you read those verses in Job 5:2-5, we see that there's mismanagement. Their gardens, their yard, their home is so mismanaged that the neighborhood doesn't even want them there. They are cursing them. The children are a danger to society. And the children are hungry often. The children have no moral compass, no guidance. There's no parenting going on. And so there's a lot of misery. And whether it is a rich family with these sinful qualities or a poor family, it ends in a lot of brokenness. It ends in a lot of toxicity, dysfunction, and even suicide. We see that suicide rates are going up. These very sins and problems and issues that Job was recognizing were a result of harboring sins, living for self, being envious, greedy, and covetous. These same sins are present in our society today. People living for pleasure and for the moment and for self. And this brings on total immorality and a reckless life. And so as we continue here, King Solomon, he said that he saw one sore evil, one horrible wickedness under the sun, and that was when the rich people kept amassing riches for themselves, and it became a hurt to them and to their families. We see that in wealthy families, the children are so dysfunctional so often, and there's so much divorce and remarriage and redivorcing. And so the law of God is by design. When we embrace it, when we allow God to write it in our hearts, brings blessings. But when we don't allow him to write it in our hearts, the devil writes his lust in our hearts and his rebellion and pride and selfishness in our hearts. And the result is terrifying. And so it is very easy to see in our society today the results of not walking with God. And so we know that there are blessings when we allow God to work in our lives. And John Wesley was such a wise minister of the gospel and evangelist. And he would always say, do all the good you can and save all you can and work as hard as you can. And then save as much as you can and give as much as you can. So how do wicked people reveal what's in their heart and mind? Because we need to actually self-check, right? So how can we see whether we have these kind of qualities and weeds growing in our hearts and minds? So David, he says, the wicked boast of their heart's desire. They just brag about what they're going to get next, what they're going to buy, and pride themselves publicly in their lusting. And they bless the covetous. So they will actually applaud each other in their wasteful, vain, and selfish living and extravagance that is so wasteful. And he goes on to say that the Lord abhors all of this. So heaven sees, God blesses, God gives us opportunities, all the skill, the talents, the blessings that come our way, whether they're financial or opportunities or whatever it might be. these are given to us to minister to one another, to serve humanity, to serve the orphans, the widows, the oppressed, to set them free. And if we continue in a path of selfishness and greed, we are destroying ourselves. So these qualities come from the devil, and humanity has embraced those traits. Let me go back to John Wesley. He said, "Don't you know that God entrusted you with all the money that you have? And above what you need to provide for the necessities of your family, everything is given to you to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, help the stranger, the wicked, and the orphan, to relieve the wants of mankind. How dare we defraud the Lord by applying it to another purpose?" And so we need to see, how are we using the blessings that God gives us, and the opportunities and the strength and the intellect? May we use it all for the glory of God, because it leads to an eternal life rather than death and destruction. And it's a blessing to our families as well. May God be with you. Until tomorrow.